It's not just America. If you look at around Europe, around the UK, I mean, G7 nations all have a debt problem. In this country, we're looking at about 100% of GDP. France is about 110, going on 115%. And it's worth mentioning France because at the moment they're trying to form a government which will be highly socialistic, communist even, which is bound to lead to enormous selling of French debt by foreign institutions, particularly the Japanese. We've got the same problem in this country. I mean, because London is the largest financial centre in Europe, the ownership of sterling in foreign hands is exceptionally large. Now, at the moment, everybody's sort of thinking, well, the new government is going to be responsible. But I mean, this is pie in the sky stuff. They're not. They're highly socialistic. They're not going to achieve anything. They're going to make the situation worse. And I mean, we can have a whole podcast about that. So we're living on hope here. And the idea that sterling, which has rallied to, $1.30, that will eventually go down to, I believe, par with the dollar. So, for anyone, for any Brit, this is a wonderful opportunity to get the hell out of credit and get in, sterling credit and get into gold, because there is a 30% uplift just from the change in the relationship, which I see between sterling and the dollar. So, but markets, they're just not looking at this sort of stuff. They just don't seem to appreciate it. It's all based on hope. And this idea that interest rates can decline and decline and decline is the biggest load of stupidity that I have ever seen in markets. I mean, I've seen some very, very badly mispriced markets, but this takes the biscuit. It really does. Outside bubbles, if you like. The history of this essentially starts with the Russians looking at how to construct a new trade settlement currency for BRICS. Originally, it was Sergei Glaziev who was appointed by Putin to look at this problem for the Eurasian Economic Union, which basically were the stans, if you like, ex-Soviet Union stans, if you like, between Russia and China and, North Tibet. We have seen there's a paper which is a sort of early proposal of how this might be constructed. And they're talking about this trade settlement currency consisting of 40% backing by gold and the rest of it currencies. And the paper actually was not all that well put together. There were big areas of confusion, in my view. Now, it may well have been tidied up somewhat, but it looks like we are going to see another attempt to get this on the agenda by Russia.
The world is teetering on the edge of a financial precipice, and it's not just America that's staring into the abyss. Across Europe and the UK, G7 nations are grappling with a debt problem of epic proportions. In the UK, the national debt is hovering around 100% of GDP, while France is pushing towards 115%. And this is not just a numbers game. It's about the kind of future these countries are heading towards. France, for instance, is in the throes of forming a government that leans heavily towards socialism, even bordering on communism. This shift in governance is bound to spook foreign investors, particularly the Japanese, who hold significant amounts of French debt. The situation in the UK isn't much better. London, being the largest financial center in Europe, has a substantial amount of sterling held in foreign hands. The current hope is that the new UK government will be responsible and steer the economy away from the brink. But let's be realistic. This is more pie in the sky than a solid economic strategy. The likelihood of a responsible and effective government emerging from this mess is slim, and the consequences will be dire. As the pound sterling continues to struggle, there is a very real possibility that it could reach parity with the US dollar. Yet the markets seem oblivious to these looming threats. Investors are clinging to the hope that interest rates will continue to decline, despite all evidence to the contrary. This is, without a doubt, one of the biggest misjudgments in market history. The idea that interest rates can perpetually decline is not just misguided, it's a fantasy that will soon be shattered. We've seen mispriced markets before, But this takes the cake. It's a bubble waiting to burst, and when it does, the fallout will be severe. But this isn't just about misjudgments and miscalculations. It's about the broader global context. The origins of this crisis can be traced back to the actions of Russia and its efforts to construct a new trade settlement currency for the BRICS nations. Originally, this initiative was spearheaded by Sergei Glazyev, who was appointed by President Putin to explore the creation of a trade settlement currency for the Eurasian Economic Union, a consortium of ex-Soviet states aligned with Russia and China. There have been papers and proposals outlining how this new currency might be constructed, with the most notable suggestion being a currency backed 40% by gold. However, the initial proposals were somewhat disjointed and left many questions unanswered. Despite these early challenges, Russia is determined to push this initiative forward, especially since it holds the BRICS chairmanship in 2024. With around 200 meetings scheduled this year alone to discuss various aspects of BRICS, it's clear that the expansion and formalization of this new economic bloc are high on the agenda. The BRICS alliance, which currently consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is poised to expand significantly, potentially adding several more countries to its ranks. The implications of this expansion are profound, particularly when it comes to the future of global currency systems. As the US dollar and other Western currencies continue to falter, there will come a point where both Russia and China will have no choice but to protect themselves from the economic fallout in the West. The most effective way for them to do this is by establishing a proper gold exchange standard for their currencies. Whether they get it right from the start remains to be seen, but the fact is that Russia has the gold reserves to make this a reality. In addition to the reserves held by the Central Bank of Russia, the country also has 2 sovereign wealth funds that contain significant amounts of gold. The total holdings are estimated to be around 12,000 tons, more than the declared gold reserves of the United States. This is a game changer, especially when you consider that BRICS represents around 60% to 70% of the world's population. China's economy, while officially smaller than the US economy, is actually far larger when measured on a purchasing power parity basis. This means that as the West continues to sink under the weight of its own debt and economic mismanagement, there is a new world rising, a world where gold and silver will play a central role in maintaining financial stability and economic growth.
And bear in mind that Russia has the chairmanship of BRICS in 2024, this year, and is organizing something like 200 meetings to do with BRICS. These being meetings which are sort of progressing various elements of BRICS and so on and so forth. And there is no doubt that the membership of BRICS will be expanded even further. So I think from 10, we're probably going up to, I don't know. I mean, we could easily see it somewhere between 15 and 20. Mm-hmm. So that I think is the extent of it so far. Your question basically being the move towards gold backing of currencies. I think there will come a point when the collapse of the dollar and Western currencies, because the dollar goes down, the rest of us will go down with it. There will come a point where both Russia and China will move from trying not to, if you like, change the world in currency terms, to protecting themselves from what's actually going on in the West. And the only way in which they can do that is to put their currencies on on a proper gold exchange standard. Mm-hmm. Now, whether they get it right or wrong from the start, I would have my doubts whether they will get it right. But the point is that Russia has the gold, apart from the reserves at the Central Bank of Russia. They've got 2 sovereign wealth funds which contain gold as well. And my information is that their total holdings are in the region of about 12,000 tons. Now, that's more than the declared holdings of America. Now, the important point, Tom, is that if we talk about Russia, China, and BRICS, we're talking about 60% of the world's population, 70% of the world's population represented by these nations. If you look at the Chinese economy, officially it's smaller than the US economy. But if you look at it on a purchasing power parity, which is the best way to look at it, it's actually far larger than the US economy. So, while we in the West are sinking sinking and sinking and sinking, there is a new world out there, rising and rising and rising. So this is good news, because you don't want everybody to sink at the same time. That would be the end of the whole thing.
As the BRICS nations continue to strengthen their economic ties and expand their influence, the possibility of a gold-backed currency becomes increasingly likely. The collapse of the US dollar and other Western currencies is no longer a far-fetched scenario, but a looming reality. When this collapse occurs, it will not just be the dollar that falls. The rest of the Western currencies will follow suit. This will force both Russia and China to shift from merely protecting their economies to actively reshaping the global currency system. The idea of a gold-backed currency is not new, but the context in which it is being proposed now is vastly different from the past. For Russia and China, moving towards a gold standard is not just about establishing a stable currency. It's about asserting their economic sovereignty in a world where Western dominance is waning. With their substantial gold reserves and the support of the BRICS alliance, these nations are in a prime position to lead this transition. The concept of a gold-backed currency is appealing for several reasons. First and foremost, gold is a universally recognized store of value that has stood the test of time. Unlike fiat currencies, which can be devalued through reckless monetary policy, gold retains its value because it is a finite resource that cannot be easily manipulated. This makes it an ideal foundation for a stable and trustworthy currency. Moreover, the move towards a gold standard would signal a significant shift in global economic power. For decades, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency, giving the United States unparalleled influence over global finance. However, this dominance has been eroded by years of fiscal irresponsibility and the unchecked expansion of the money supply. The BRICS nations, particularly Russia and China, see this as an opportunity to challenge the dollar's supremacy and establish a new global economic order. The potential impact of a gold-backed BRICS currency on the global financial system cannot be overstated. Such a currency would provide a viable alternative to the US dollar, which is currently used in most international trade transactions. Countries that have been looking for a way to reduce their dependence on the dollar would likely flock to this new currency, further undermining the dollar's position as the world's reserve currency. This shift would also have profound implications for the value of gold and silver. As the demand for these precious metals increases, their prices are likely to soar. This is not just speculation, it is a logical outcome of the changes we are seeing in the global economy. Central banks around the world are already increasing their gold reserves in anticipation of this shift. The repatriation of gold from Western vaults to countries like India and China is a clear sign that these nations are preparing for a future where gold plays a central role in the global economy. In addition to the economic implications, the move towards a gold-backed currency would also have significant geopolitical ramifications. The BRICS nations, by establishing a currency that is independent of Western control, would be asserting their sovereignty and challenging the existing global power structure. This could lead to a realignment of global alliances and a shift in the balance of power away from the West and towards the East. For investors, this presents a unique opportunity. The current price of gold and silver is likely to be a bargain compared to where it could go in the near future. As the BRICS nations continue to accumulate gold and prepare for this transition, the value of these metals is only going to increase. This is not just about protecting wealth, it's about positioning oneself to benefit from the inevitable changes that are coming. As we move forward, it's important to stay informed and be prepared for what lies ahead. The media in the West may not be reporting on these developments, but that doesn't mean they aren't happening. The smart money is already making its move, quietly accumulating gold and silver, while prices are still relatively low. The question is, will you be ready when the rest of the world catches on? In conclusion, the global financial system is undergoing a significant transformation, and gold and silver are at the heart of this change. The BRICS nations are leading the way, using their substantial gold reserves to build a new economic order that challenges the dominance of the US dollar and other Western currencies. For those who are paying attention, this represents an unprecedented opportunity to secure their financial future. The time to act is now, before the rest of the world wakes up to the reality of what is happening. This is not just an opportunity for investors, but a wake-up call for everyone who understands the dynamics at play. The transformation from a fiat-based system to one anchored by gold and other tangible assets is more than just a financial shift. It is a fundamental change in how global power is structured. This shift is not about the end of the US dollar or the demise of Western economies, but rather a rebalancing of power where multiple currencies and nations share the global stage. In this new world, those who hold gold and silver will hold the keys to economic stability and prosperity. It's essential to recognize that this is not just a future possibility, but a process that is already well underway. The accumulation of gold by central banks, the development of a BRICS currency, and the increasing interest in gold and silver as safe havens are all indicators that the world is preparing for a significant shift. For those who understand the implications, the time to act is now. Secure your financial future by investing in assets that have stood the test of time and that will continue to provide security and stability in an increasingly uncertain world. As the saying goes, he who owns the gold makes the rules. Make sure you're on the right side of history.
Stay informed about the latest developments shaping the precious metals market with regular updates from the Finance Daily team. Not only that, but as a subscriber, you'll also receive timely silver and gold price notifications and early access to groundbreaking news unavailable to the general public. Join our free gold and silver newsletter today. Link in the description.